The town of Black Hollow, Ohio, wasn't the kind of place you'd find on a postcard. Tucked between endless cornfields and a sluggish river that smelled faintly of rust, it was the kind of small town where everyone knew your name, your parents' names, and the exact moment you snuck out to smoke behind the gas station in high school. It was the kind of place where nothing happened until it did. It was October, the air sharp with the promise of Halloween, and the leaves were bleeding red and gold across the streets. Black Hollow was gearing up for its annual harvest fair, a tradition that brought out every local from the diner waitresses to the old farmers who never left their porches. But this year, something was off. You could feel it in the way the wind lingered too long, carrying whispers that didn't quite make sense. You could see it in the way the streetlights flickered at odd hours, casting shadows that seemed to move on their own. The trouble started with Lot 17. Lot 17 was an empty patch of land on the edge of town, a quarter-acre of cracked dirt and overgrown weeds that nobody wanted to touch. It sat at the end of Maple Street, past the neat rows of suburban houses with their manicured lawns and American flags. The lot was a blemish, an eyesore, surrounded by a rusted chain-link fence that sagged like it was tired of standing. Nobody knew who owned it. The county records were a mess, a tangle of missing deeds and names that led nowhere. The old-timers swore it was cursed, tied to some half-forgotten story about a family that vanished in the 1,950 seconds. Kids called it the Whispering Lot, claiming if you stood there at midnight, you'd hear voices soft, urgent, begging you to come closer. Most people laughed it off. Ghost stories were just that, stories. But when a sleek black SUV rolled into town one crisp October morning, parked in front of Lot 17, and a man in a crisp suit started hammering a "for sale" sign into the ground, the whispers started again. His name was Richard Hale, a real estate developer from Columbus, with a smile that was too wide and eyes that didn't blink enough. He'd bought Lot 17, he said, and planned to build a model home, a modern, eco-friendly masterpiece that would put Black Hollow on the map. The town council was thrilled. New blood, new money, new jobs, but the locals weren't so sure. They watched Hale's crew clear the lot, tearing out weeds and leveling the dirt, and they muttered about bad omens. The crows that always gathered near the lot didn't scatter when the bulldozers came. They just watched, their black eyes glinting like they knew something nobody else did. The first sign something was wrong came the night the construction started. A group of teenagers, Jake Miller, Sarah Nguyen, and Ethan Carter, decided to sneak onto the lot after dark. They were the kind of kids who thrived on dares, the ones who'd climb the water tower or steal pumpkins from Old Man Jenkins' porch. Jake, the unofficial leader, had heard the stories about the Whispering Lot since he was a kid. He didn't believe them, but he wasn't about to pass up a chance to impress Sarah, who'd been his crush since 8th grade. "Come on," Jake said, his breath fogging in the chilly air as they ducked under the fence. "It's just a dumb lot. Nothing's gonna happen." Sarah rolled her eyes, but she followed, her phone flashlight cutting through the dark. Ethan, trailing behind, kept glancing over his shoulder. "I don't know, man," he muttered. "My grandma says this place is bad news. She said her cousin heard the voices back in '73, and he was never the same." Jake snorted. "Your grandma also thinks Wi-Fi causes cancer." They stood in the center of the lot, the ground uneven under their sneakers. The air was heavy, like a storm was coming, though the sky was clear. Sarah shivered, pulling her hoodie tighter. "It's creepy, I'll give you that," she said. "But I don't hear any..." She stopped. They all did. A sound, faint at first, like a breeze rustling dry leaves. But there was no breeze. The sound grew, forming words, soft and overlapping, like a crowd murmuring just out of reach. "Come, stay, listen." The voices weren't loud, but they seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere, curling around the edges of their minds. Ethan's face went pale. "You hear that, right? Tell me you hear that." Jake nodded, his bravado gone. Sarah grabbed his arm, her nails digging in. "We should go," she whispered. They ran, scrambling under the fence, not stopping until they reached the safety of Maple Street's streetlights. They didn't talk about it the next day, or the day after that, but Jake started having nightmares dark, suffocating dreams of hands reaching up from the dirt pulling him down. Sarah's phone, which she'd used to record a shaky video of the lot, started glitching, playing snippets of those whispers even when it was off. Ethan stopped leaving his house altogether. The town noticed. Rumors spread like wildfire. Construction on Lot 17 continued, but the workers started quitting. One said he saw shadows moving in the dirt, humanoid shapes that vanished when he looked directly at them. Another swore his tools kept disappearing, only to reappear arranged in perfect circles. Hale dismissed it all as small-town superstition, but even he looked uneasy when he thought nobody was watching. By the time the model home was finished, a sleek, glass-walled monstrosity that looked out of place among Black Hollow's modest ranches, nobody wanted to go near it. The harvest fair came and went, but the usual buzz of excitement was muted. Kids didn't trick-or-treat on Maple Street. Dogs barked at nothing when they passed Lot 17. And then, on Halloween night, Hale announced an open house. Free food, free drinks, a chance to tour the future of Black Hollow. He was desperate to sell, and desperation made him bold. A small crowd showed up, more out of curiosity than interest. There was Karen Walsh, the town librarian who'd been researching Lot 17's history. Mike Torres, a mechanic who didn't believe in ghosts but loved free beer. And Emily Carter, Ethan's older sister, who'd come to keep an eye on things after her brother's breakdown. Jake and Sarah were there too, lingering at the back, unable to stay away despite their fear. The house was beautiful, all sharp angles and polished floors, but it felt wrong. The air was too cold, the lights too dim. The whispers were there, faint but constant, seeping through the walls. Karen, clutching a folder of old newspaper clippings, whispered to Mike about the family that had lived on the lot in the 1,950 seconds, the Harrisons. They'd been ordinary. A mom, dad, and 2 kids. Until one night they were gone. No bodies, no note, just an empty house and a car still in the driveway. The official report said they'd run off, but Karen's research suggested something darker. Neighbors had reported hearing screams, seeing lights in the windows long after the family was gone. The lot had been empty ever since. Hale led the tour, his voice too loud, his smile too forced. He showed off the smart home features, voice-activated lights, a security system that could see every corner of the property. But when he demonstrated the system, the screens flickered, showing grainy images of empty rooms, except for one. In the basement feed, a figure stood in the corner, motionless, its face blurred. Hale laughed it off as a glitch, but the crowd shifted uneasily. As the night wore on, strange things happened. Glasses shattered on their own. The thermostat spiked to 90 degrees, then plummeted to freezing. Emily swore she saw a child's handprint appear on a window, only to vanish when she pointed it out. Jake and Sarah, who'd snuck into the basement to investigate, found a trapdoor under a rug, a trapdoor that wasn't on the blueprints. It led to a small, dirt-walled room, the air thick with the smell of damp earth. The whispers were louder here, almost deafening, forming a single word over and over. Stay. They didn't stay. They ran, dragging Emily with them, shouting for everyone to get out. Most of the crowd listened, fleeing into the night. But Hale refused to leave. "This is my investment," he screamed, his face red with anger. "You're not ruining this for me." Karen stayed too, determined to find answers. She'd found a journal in the library archives, written by the Harrisons' youngest daughter, Lily. It described strange dreams, voices calling from the ground, a hunger that wanted to keep them forever. The last entry was a single sentence. "It's under the house, and it's awake." As the clock struck midnight, the house began to change. The lights went out, replaced by a sickly green glow that pulsed from the walls. The whispers became screams, raw and desperate, echoing through every room. Hale, still defiant, marched to the basement, muttering about fixing the electrical system. Karen followed, clutching the journal, begging him to leave. They didn't come back. The next morning, Lot 17 was empty again. The model home was gone, as if it had never been built. The dirt was undisturbed, the weeds back in place, the fence as rusted as ever. Hale's SUV was still parked on the street, keys in the ignition, but he was nowhere to be found. Karen's car was there too, her journal on the passenger seat, open to a new page, with a single word scrawled in shaky handwriting. Stay. The town tried to move on. The police searched the lot, but found nothing. No house, no bodies, no evidence. Lot 17 was cordoned off, declared unsafe. But nobody wanted to touch it anyway. The crows still gathered, watching silently. The whispers never stopped. Jake and Sarah left Black Hollow after graduation, unable to shake the nightmares. Emily took Ethan to therapy, but he never spoke about the lot again. The town's kids made up new stories, daring each other to sneak onto the lot at midnight. Most didn't make it past the fence. Those who did came back changed, their eyes distant, their voices quiet. And sometimes, late at night, when the wind was still and the streetlights flickered, you could hear it, the whispers, soft and endless, calling from the dirt. Come, stay, listen. Black Hollow never built on Lot 17 again. Some say it's cursed, some say it's alive. But everyone agrees on one thing. Whatever's down there, it's hungry, and it's waiting.